Hey 514 Small Groups, welcome back to week 2 of the learning season. We are currently in a part of the curriculum called Teach Us to Pray. And so, last week we talked about the fact that it seems like prayer is hard for a lot of us, and yet there's a moment in the Bible where the disciples of Jesus ask him, teach us to pray, and he does. And so we think that it would be wise for us to get together in our communities and our small groups and to talk about what exactly it is that Jesus taught his disciples to pray. And so today I am joined by the fearless leader of the small group ministry, Emma Yukis. And so she is going to help us unpack some of the first part of this prayer today. Emma, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So one of the things that we're going to do over the next couple weeks is when you think about this idea that the disciples said, please teach us to pray. And Jesus said, okay, this then is how you should pray. He could have said anything. So what he did say is probably really important for us to dig into. And, we're not going to go too in depth, but you could probably pick apart every single word. Like, this is Jesus, who is the Christ. He's like the master teacher. And so what he says in terms of teach us to pray, this is how you pray. We want to really, really dig into that. And so we're just going to start at the beginning of the prayer that he tells them to pray, the prayer that we know as the Lord's Prayer. And so it begins with, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. So when you think of that intro, because I would assume that the intro to this is important, like it is in storytelling. This is how we address the person we're praying to. Our Father in heaven. What jumps out to you about that?
Yeah, Jesus is saying our Father, so it's not just his Father, which is interesting that he's saying it's all of our fathers. And then also with our, it kind of implies that we're together, that we should pray together, because you wouldn't pray by yourself and say our Father. But rather, if you're praying over a group of people, you would say, Our Father.
Yeah, so it's almost like the first thing to notice is that, maybe we're supposed to do this out loud with each other.
Yeah.
I think when I think about prayer, I think about it by myself in my room. Is that how you think about it?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was taught to pray. And I think that's a good thing to do. But on Sunday mornings, I guess we pray together. Yeah. And maybe we're here in small groups. So maybe it's good for us to pray together out loud. Because that is how Jesus kind of describes the beginning of prayer, our Father. So they're together, and then what else?
The word Father sticks out to me a ton. Probably all of you watching this know my father, Kenny Sipes. You know my dad. He's great. So I grew up with a really great father. He was actually my youth group leader, so it was very easy for me to see God as a good father because I had a good earthly father. And as I have gotten older, really the past couple years, between fostering and leading high school girls, I've seen a lot of examples of bad fathers and seen people I really love struggle because they don't have good fathers. And I genuinely had never thought about God as my father as being weird or unrelatable until my high school girls especially started talking about how, well, I don't have a good relationship with my dad. Yeah. That is not relatable to me. Thinking of God as a father is not a good thing to me. Yeah. And so that's been really interesting to navigate and try to lead through. But then when you think about really beautiful earthly families and how great those are, and those aren't even perfect, it does show a beautiful picture of who God is as our Father. Yeah.
Jesus is telling them, when you pray, address him. Yeah. And how he addresses him as Father. Yeah. When you think about who God is, you can think about him being the creator, the sustainer, the judge, the, someone who's powerful and far away. But a good father is someone who's close, has a close relationship, is incredibly impactful on his children. Yeah. And so it's interesting, when you think about your relationship with your dad and how you grew up, it's like he is your father. Yeah. There's nothing that you did necessarily to make him your father. Right. And it wasn't if you did something wrong or made him mad, you were possibly going to get kicked out of that father-daughter relationship. Right. And so I guess theoretically that's kind of how Jesus foundationally understands our relationship with God.
Yeah.
That he is actually like a father figure in our life. I don't know if this is helpful for the groups, but for me, who kind of grew up outside of church, these different ideas of who God is in our life was never really unpacked for me. And I did usually think of God as kind of being distant, somewhere else. Like maybe he put the universe in motion, but now he's gone, and so he's not like here. But like a good father is like there. Yeah. And there's like a real relationship in that. What have you kind of seen in terms of like how, if you have a bad relationship with your earthly father, how have you seen people able to conceptualize that the relationship you can have with the Father, God, can actually be healthy, and it can be something that they may not have gotten from their father, they may not have felt from their father?
Yeah, I think that using other terms for God than Father, and then relating how those are the same characteristics.
Yeah.
So all the words like caring and nurturing and all these things that God is, and all these things that earthly fathers should be.
Yeah.
And, bridging that gap has helped some of my high school girls especially to see that can be a good thing. And then just seeing positive examples of dads, that not all dads are bad.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's good. The one thing that's always impacted me is I had a pretty good relationship with my dad too. And he was proud of being my dad. Mm-hmm. Not only do I say he's my father, but he claims me as his child. Yeah. He's like proud of that. Mm-hmm. He's happy. That's a big part of his life and who he is. And so that's a big part of who God is.
Yeah. He's proud of us.
That you are his child.
Absolutely.
He's proud to call you his own, which is way different than this concept of like cosmic judge that is seeing the world from afar. And that's how Jesus teaches his disciples to like address that God. Yeah. But one of the things that I find interesting as you go on, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, is that there's a lot of tension in the Christian faith, because things are this and they're that, and a lot of times we want to kind of break them up. And the Bible never really runs away from those things. Mm-hmm. And so immediately the tension of God being the creator, the sustainer of the universe, the cosmic judge who will come to bring justice to the world, and being the Father are put right there. So do you know what the word hallowed means?
No, I would love for you to tell me. That was my next question.
Which is funny. It's funny that there's other words for this, but because of the tradition of the Lord's Prayer, they just kind of kept that one. Hallowed. So if you're a sports fan and you think of like a historic place, they might call, something like Lambeau Field, where the Green Bay Packers play, they might call it like the hallowed halls of Lambeau Field. Like hallowed means, and what it means in Old English is holy. So our Father in heaven, holy is your name. And to be holy means to be unique or set apart or called apart for something different. And so right there, it's like he is the Father, but he's holy. He's holy, holy, holy is God. He's different, he's other, because he is your creator, and he is your sustainer, and he is God, and we are not God. Yeah. And we are his creatures, he is the creator. There's that distinction. And so it's like think about just how rich and deep that theology is in the first, it's one sentence if you put a comma there. Our Father in heaven, holy is your name. It's like God is both intimately connected with us, proud to call us his own, in love with us, in pursuit of us, and yet simultaneously the God that claims us is that God that's holy and other, whose creative power breathed like all of this into existence, that sustains our life, that we thank for the breath in our lungs and for everything that we have. And all of that is like right there in the first two lines. So we read a book as a staff called The Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard. And one of the things that he talks about is he's like, we think about Jesus, we give him all these titles. And one thing that we don't usually say, or that we don't think about, is that if that is God in the flesh, then that's the smartest man who's ever lived. Yeah. So even his teaching is just gonna like blow your mind if you really sit down and like think about it and read it. And so here we are at the very beginning, the intro, and Jesus has just kind of set the table with what I would say is one of the most difficult tensions of understanding God, which is that he is our Father, and he is the creator and the sustainer and over the cosmos and all of that. And it's all right there at the beginning. So we're gonna kind of wrap it up there for today, but I'm excited to keep digging in, because if that's the address, then I would imagine that the things that we ask him for and the things that we ask of him, all that is gonna like also blow our minds. Do you have anything to add?
I have never like looked at the beginning of the prayer like this and how much it means. And like you said, there's so much more to unpack, but even just in that short line is so much, which is really cool. And I'm excited to discuss it.
It's easy to like breeze through.
Yeah.
And so last week, you know, we talked about how sometimes we feel like if we're not praying spontaneously, it's not authentic. But one of the reasons that these kinds of prayers have been passed down for thousands and thousands of years is not just because Jesus said it, but because the content of it is like, I mean, that sentence just said more than, I don't know, 3 Sundays of standing up and preaching would ever be able to really communicate. And so this prayer is deep. And so I want to encourage everybody not only to have a good discussion, but to pray for the groups the group that you've been assigned to pray for together, to pray out loud together, and to go through the Lord's Prayer like you'll do every week, and just pray that together. Even before we unpack it all, just pray it together. But today, maybe take some time and just sit and dwell on that intro for a second, after kind of maybe for the first time looking at the depths of the meaning and the theology and the truth that's in there right in the first line. So thank you for joining us, Emma.
Of course.
And we will see all of the groups in 2 weeks for week 3. Bye, guys.